The farm road stretched quiet under the morning sun. Dust rose beneath our boots as Harris led us toward the old farmhouse. Its wooden siding was weathered, its roof patched in places. And near the corner a rusted service mast leaned like a crooked staff. The wires sagged low, almost brushing the porch roof. This, Harris said, pointing upward, is where power enters the home. The service entrance. And today, apprentices, you will learn to build the gate of power. Maria shaded her eyes. That mast is barely standing. And the drip loop there isn't one. Exactly, Harris said. The service drop from the utility pole should enter through a weatherhead with drip loops to shed rain. Without them, water runs down the conductors into the meter, into the panel, into disaster. The foreman's voice cut sharp. Clearance. How high must service conductors be above a driveway? I answered quickly. At least 12 feet, he snapped back. And above a public road? 18 feet, I said, trying not to stumble. Gave the faintest nod. Do not forget. Inspectors measure, not guess. Kevin smirked. So we just bolt a new mast and we're done? Harris's eyes narrowed. If only it were that simple. First, a permit. Nothing happens until the utility company and inspector approve. Work without it, and you pay fines or lose your license. The farmhouse owner handed Harris a folded paper. Harris opened it slowly, then showed us. Permit approved. 200 amp service. New mast, weatherhead, drip loop, meter socket, balanced, grounded, inspected. We carried the new service mast from the truck. Heavy galvanized steel, taller than a man. Harris guided us as we set it against the wall. Maria held the level steady. Plumb. I drilled the anchors. Kevin tightened the straps, the mast rising true this time. At the top, we installed the weatherhead aluminum gleaming in the sun, angled to shed rain. Drip loops next, Harris instructed. Conductors enter from above, then dip before rising into the head. Gravity pulls the water away. Kevin tried first, bending the wires downward, but his loops were stiff and uneven. Looks fine, he muttered. The foreman's glare could have burned steel. It's fine does not pass inspection. Loops must be neat, even deliberate. Sloppy work is failed work. Maria stepped up, hands steady. She shaped each conductor into a gentle curve, symmetrical and clean. Harris nodded. That is a drip loop. Water falls to the ground, not into the meter. Remember, every drop has weight. We stood back. The mast gleamed upright, weatherhead crowned, loops ready for the utilities service drop. Just then, a truck pulled onto the dusty road. A man in a gray jacket stepped out, clipboard in hand. The inspector. His eyes swept the mast, the head, the loops. He said nothing for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. Clearance. I answered, my throat tight. Over the yard 12 feet minimum. Over the roof 3 feet. Ours is 4. The inspector's eyes narrowed. Good. But the mast is too short for the lines crossing the driveway. You will need an extension, Kevin groaned under his breath, but Harris silenced him with a glance. We'll correct it. The inspector circled the house once more, then stopped at the permit taped to the wall. He pressed his stamp onto the paper. Preliminary approved. Finish the installation, I'll return for final. As he left dust trailing behind his truck, Harris turned to us. You see, apprentices, the service entrance is more than wires and steel. It is the gateway between the utility and the home. Clearance, weatherproofing, permits each detail, carries the weight of law. The foreman's voice rumbled low. Remember, inspectors are not your enemy. They are the guardians at the gate. Respect them, or they will turn you back. Maria smiled faintly, eyes on the gleaming mast. It feels like building a doorway for power to enter. Harris nodded. Exactly. Today you built the gate. Tomorrow, you will mark it with the meter the eye that watches every kilowatt. The foreman's eyes glinted. Next episode, the mark of the meter. The mast we set yesterday stood tall and true, crowned with its weatherhead and perfect drip loops. Today, a new task waited, the meter. Harris laid the square metal box on the table of fresh meter socket, its jaws gleaming like teeth. This is the mark of the meter, he said. Every kilowatt that flows into this house will pass through here. Get it wrong, and the inspector fails you. Get it right, and the utility seals it as your signature. Maria leaned closer. So this is where line meets load. Exactly, Harris said, pointing to the terminals. Line side from the utility above, load side down to the panel. Switch them, and the system fails. Worse, someone gets hurt. The foreman's voice boomed like iron. Apprentice, show me line and load. I stepped forward, tracing with my finger. Top lugs, line, bottom lugs, load. The foreman's glare softened slightly. Correct. Forget it once, and you'll never forget again. We mounted the meter socket beside the mast, anchoring it into the siding. Kevin tightened the bolts, his usual grin back on his face. Easy work, he said. Maria frowned. Not so easy. Your label is upside down, Kevin froze. Sure enough, the sticker reading line was crooked, pointing the wrong way. Harris's expression darkened. If the inspector sees that, he assumes incompetence. Fix it, Kevin muttered, embarrassed, and peeled the label off, pressing it back straight. Next came the wires. Harris handed me the heavy conductors, thick as my finger. I bent them into place, sweating as I landed them under the lugs. Torque, Harris said. Not too loose, not too tight. Strip too little, and strands burn. Strip too much, and copper shows. Precision, not guessing. I twisted the torque wrench carefully until it clicked. The sound echoed like a seal of approval. When the last conductor was landed, the meter socket stood proud, ready for its glass eye. But before we could admire it, a truck rumbled down the dusty road. The utility technician climbed out, tool bag at his side. His hard hat bore the utility's logo. His eyes swept the socket, the mast, the weatherhead. He nodded slightly. Looks clean, he said. But remember, once the meter is set, this box belongs to us. The seal goes on, and if I find it broken, tampered, Joel face fines? Or worse, Maria whispered. Tampering, like stealing power. The technician's voice sharpened. Exactly. Never touch a sealed meter. Inspectors know the signs. Cut seals, bent jaws, missing rings. Once suspicion falls on you, your license is in jeopardy. Kevin raised his hands quickly. We wouldn't touch it. The technician's eyes lingered on him, then softened. See that you don't? He lifted a silver safety seal from his bag, holding it up like a key. This is the mark. Once I stamp it, the system is live under the eyes of the utility. No one tampers, no one cheats. Just then, the inspector's truck returned. He stepped out, clipboard in hand, and circled the installation. His eyes darted to the socket, the mast, the weatherhead. He pulled at the labels, checked the torque with his own wrench, then finally looked at us. Line side correct. Load side correct. Clearance good. Labels straight. Permit matched. His voice was flat, but at the edge was something like approval. Harris inclined his head. Then the work passes. The inspector pressed a stamp onto the permit taped to the siding. Approved. The mark of the meter is complete. The utility technician slid the glass meter into the socket, its jaws gripping with a heavy click. He twisted the seal into place, crimping it with his tool. The metal tag shone in the sun, final and absolute. There, he said, power awaits. As the truck rumbled away, Harris turned to us. The meter is more than a box. It is trust between you, the inspector, and the utility. Break that trust and you break your career. The foreman's eyes narrowed. But we are not done. The gate is built, the mark is sealed, yet the foundation is missing. Without ground, this system stands on sand. Maria frowned. Ground rods, bonding, the final judgment. Nada gravely. Tomorrow, you will face the earth itself. One rod may not be enough. Inspectors demand proof. Once. And the house stands unprotected. Kevin sighed, muttering, always more tests. The foreman's glare silenced him. Next episode. The judgment of ground. The meter socket gleamed under the morning sun, sealed and official. Power waited at the gate, but Harris stood silent, staring at the bare earth near the foundation. He tapped the ground with his boot. Without this, he said, the house is still naked. Electricity must find its way home. Today, you face the judgment of ground. Maria opened the box of copper rods at foot lengths, their ends sharpened for driving into soil. Grounding electrodes, she whispered. Correct, Harris said. One rod may be enough. But if resistance is too high, the inspector demands two. Bonded together, driven deep. No guesswork, only proof. The foreman barked, "Apprentice, where do you bond?" I steadied my breath. From the ground rod to the grounding electrode conductor into the service neutral bus. Bonded with clamps, secure, continuous. His eyes narrowed, and the jumper. "Between neutral bus and ground bus," I said. "At the service disconnect only. After that, separate." The foreman's glare softened slightly. "Forget that rule once, and you build a path for fire." We set to work. Kevin hefted the sledgehammer, driving the first rod into the soil with grunts. Sparks of stone rang under each blow. Maria ran the copper conductor neatly, landing it under the lug with the torque wrench. Harris watched, nodding. Tight, but not crushed. Copper must flow free, not strangled. I drove the second rod, spacing it 6 feet from the first. Sweat stung my eyes, but the steel sank deep. Maria clamped the jumper between them, her hands steady. The copper ran like a lifeline into the service. When we finished, Harris inspected silently. The rods gleamed faintly in the earth, connected, bonded, unseen, but powerful. Just then the inspector's truck rolled up. He stepped out, eyes cold as ever. His tape measure flashed in the sun. He knelt by the rods, tugged at the clamps, checked the conductor's path. 2 rods, he said. Spaced 6 feet. Bonded. Torque. Correct. He tapped the neutral bus inside the disconnect. Connection made. Separation beyond. Good. Kevin almost smiled in relief, until a shout came from across the road. The neighbor, arms folded, voice sharp. "That mast is too low. Those wires sag over my driveway. Unsafe." The inspector turned slowly, his glare heavier than the sun. "Clearance check." We measured, breath tight. 14 feet. Enough for a yard, but not enough for a driveway. The inspector snapped his clipboard shut. "Extend the mast. Without clearance, I do not pass this work." Kevin cursed under his breath, but Harris silenced him. "Apprentices learn. The ground may be perfect, but if the sky fails, all fails." Together we hauled the extension, bolting it to the mast. Maria adjusted the weatherhead higher. Drip loops stretched but intact. When we measured again, the line stood 17 feet above the driveway. Safe. The inspector checked once more. At last, he pressed his stamp onto the permit. Approved. Relief washed over me like rain. The rods hidden below, the mast rising above, the meter sealed between. It all felt whole now. Harris faced us, voice solemn. "Remember this. Service entrance is not only mast, meter, and ground. It is judgment. Inspectors test the sky, the earth, and everything between. Only when all align does power flow." The foreman added, his tone like thunder, "And remember, grounding is not decoration. It is the last defense. Lightning strikes, faults break loose, wires melt ground, carries death away from life." Maria's eyes lingered on the rods, now buried, invisible. "So the strongest part is the part no one sees." Harris nodded. "Exactly. Invisible, but vital. That is discipline." As we packed the tools, Harris's voice lowered. "You pass the judgment of ground. But beyond this lies a greater code. Protection not just for houses, but for every system you touch. Next, you will enter a new chapter." The foreman's gaze was hard, but his words burned like a promise. Next episode, the Code of Protection.